This is a History Police video on the Tudors, Season 3, Part 1, so the first 5 episodes. And this first part of the series really focuses on the short reign of Jane Seymour, her complex relationship with Henry VIII, and obviously as well on one of the biggest rebellions of Tudor history, the Pilgrimage of Grace. And for me, I'm going to focus on this 2 timeline here. Obviously, I'm going to also discuss Princess Mary and Princess Elizabeth. But I want to say that actually the portrayal of Jane Seymour in this show, despite all the inaccuracies that we've seen, the timeline that were wrong in the other reviews, please check them out. Here, I think the portrayal of Jane Seymour is really, really well done and spot on. It really reveals the complexity of the woman who had to step in after the death, the execution of Anne Boleyn. Something that I truly believe played on her mind. This is the scene of the marriage of Henry VIII and Jane Seymour. And here we see something very different as well. We see here a clash. What I mean by a clash is here we have the color white or beige, you know, like this type of color that shows purity, but that also shows change. And I think here what we're trying to do is like to have a very strong differentiation between Jane Seymour and Anne Boleyn in the show anyway, because as I said, I really believe that Anne Boleyn was a very pious woman anyway. But the representation of the 2 women could not be further apart. You have this pious, quiet, discreet Jane Seymour, pure, the idea of purity, the idea of virginity, and it's almost like you know, a rebirth for Henry VIII. His 3rd marriage is really with someone who should be very different from his 2 first wives. And I've said it before, because I really believe that Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn were very similar in terms of their intellect, in terms of their influence, in terms of their agency. They were both political players. With Jane Seymour, because we don't have really a lot of sources on her, it's very hard to make the same claim. However, what I really like is the way she's portrayed in this show, and we're going to see more of it. And I believe it's quite accurate that, yes, she might have been more cautious because of what happened to Anne Boleyn. It doesn't mean that she didn't have her own voice. It didn't mean that she didn't try to have her own agency. And given that she gave birth to a son later on, if she had lived, I really believe that it would have been another type of wife, another type of queen, by the side of Henry VIII.
I assume, Excellency, that I will continue to show favour to the Lady Mary, and do my best to deserve the title of peacemaker you so gallantly have given me.
If you do so, I think you will find, madam, that without the pain of labour and childbirth, you will gain a treasured daughter, who may please you even more than your own children by the king.
It's for me very fascinating because we have the Imperial Ambassador trying to talk to Jane Seymour, but we have Henry VIII listening to it. And I think it's really well done because among academics and among historians in the academic sphere, there's a big historiographical debate. Was Henry VIII a puppet king, in the hands of Wolsey, in the hands of the Boleyn factions, in the hands of Cromwell, or was he his own master? Master of the Reformation, but master of his court, master of his policy, master of his court. And I really believe I fall down probably in the category of historians that believe that Henry VIII was very much in control of his court. And it's probably why this scene is really, is working for me, because I really believe that he would not have left Jane, especially after Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour alone with an ambassador without having a look, having a peek at what was going on, and knowing what the ambassador is saying and how problematic it can be for Henry VIII. I love that then we have a scene between the ambassador and Henry VIII where Henry VIII is basically threatening the ambassador.
To prevent me taking part in a foreign war, if only to avoid the fear and pain of separation.
A foreign war, Your Majesty. Against whom?
I was talking hypothetically. Surely you do that yourself, Excellency.
That really plays into the portrayal of Henry VIII throughout the show, which I think is probably one of the most accurate one, despite all the inaccuracies that there's been in this show in terms of timeline, instead of stories. You know, we could pick them up. But here what I want to tell you as well is that there are some portrayals in popular history that are really well done. And when you want to portray popular history, what's very important is like you get what matters. What I mean by that is like, we will never truly know exactly what happened because no one was there. And though we have evidence, we have primary sources, it's just one kind of like window into the past, right? We don't have oral history, we don't have the records of conversations, you know, which might have been very different from the primary sources, letters that we have. So I think we need to grab the essence, our interpretation of the events, our interpretation of the historical characters. And my interpretation of Henry VIII seems to match the interpretation of the showrunners. My interpretation of Jane Seymour seems to match the interpretation of the showrunners. I think they could have still done a better job for Anne Boleyn. I don't like the way she was sexualized. I think they could have done something more with her intellect. But here for Jane Seymour, and we're going to discuss it a bit more with different scenes, I think they nailed it.
Do anything to please and satisfy him. I still cannot risk my immortal soul for the favour of an earthly king.
I think it's a brilliant scene of Princess Mary. I love how sassy and bold she is. And in this first episode, the first 5 episodes of series 3, she's still take a backseat because it's more about Jane Seymour, it's more about the birth of Edward VI, the future Edward VI. But it's very well done. And the actress that portrays Mary is so talented and does such a great job at, you know, showing conflict inside Mary between her love, but you know, more the search for love with her father, and her own values, her own principle, her Catholicism. It's really nicely done.
Still proceed against the Lady Mary. With all my heart, I beg thee not to.
Are you out of your senses? Don't talk of such matters again.
We have Jane Seymour talking to Henry VIII about what she thinks should happen with Mary. His reaction is obviously, you know, again, very like Henry, you know, stay in your place. Stay in your place, don't tell me what to do. And again, it fits into this scenario or this portrayal that Henry VIII was very much in control, could listen to you, but he would only listen to you if he agreed with you. So in the end, your policies, you know, some of Cromwell's policies were applied because Henry VIII wanted them to be applied. Once he disagreed, when he didn't see any purpose anymore for you, you were in danger. And that's basically the story of Henry VIII's court.
Here's a note for 1,000 crowns. If you need anything else, you need only ask.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Father.
Yes. Father.
The reunion with Mary, between Mary and her father, is quite touching. But there's something so toxic in that reunion when he's reunited with her. Call me father, like... Yeah, should she forget everything he's done to her in the last few years? I don't know. I just think, again, I think it's well done. I think it's probably how Henry VIII would have liked to be. I mean, he was a big narcissist. And I have to say, in that show, this is well portrayed.
Why will you not speak to me?
Because I'm disappointed.
Why?
I'm disappointed because you're not yet with child.
Scene makes me cringe so much. The pressure for be with child, be pregnant, hey mate, you know, do your bloody job and then maybe I will get pregnant. It's just the way the blame is always put on the woman. It's almost unbearable to watch. The contempt he has for her or the value he gives her just lies with the fact that would she give me a boy or not. And that just makes me, you know, I'm just, this in really, like, you know, shows what Jane Seymour had to go through, especially the pressure, you know, with what happened with Anne Boleyn. Maybe the fear as well. Maybe we don't discuss that enough. Maybe that was not portrayed enough, actually, the fear of being as well a disappointment of what would happen next, what, you know, what would happen to me if I can't have children, what would happen to me if I only have daughters, you know, like all these things must have played a big, you know, role in the way she was behaving herself. The scene is quite touching, but again, we've seen it before. There's a problem with the timeline. Obviously, you know, by that time, Elizabeth must have been three and a half. I don't know, like, it looks more like a 4 or 5 years old. Could she speak French at 3? I mean, I'm sure she learned it, but I don't know. I'm not going to go like with the little mistakes they made. I mean, it's not that hard to say ma petite instead of mon petit, but apparently it is. Very touching for me is that obviously she speaks French. It's the link between what I'm trying to do with my next book, you know, on Anne Boleyn and the French. Because I really believe that Anne Boleyn and the influence of the French on her and the relationship she had with France is something that played a huge part in her fate and in her life. So here for me, I think French here is a way of remembering Anne Boleyn. So I like that scene. Obviously, it's still very awkward because you see Mary, you see Elizabeth, you see Jane, and it's just like as if Jane was this kind of bringing everyone back together and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yes, but the woman who really did that is more Catherine Parr than Jane Seymour. Maybe Jane Seymour would have done it. You know, she did try really with Mary, with Princess Mary. I don't think she tried much with Elizabeth. I think that the stigma of the execution of Anne Boleyn, but also like the reasons why she was executed, would not have lifted in a few months or even a year. So this is not really well done here. We're trying to kind of, I mean, it's a touching scene, but historically, would it have happened? Probably not, if you see what I mean.
Your special fondness?
Well, indeed. For some reason, I desire quail's eggs above everything else.
That's obviously the scene where Jane Seymour is pregnant with Edward. They're very happy.
It's kicking.
I can feel it. Oh, you feel strong. Edward, my son, be strong.
Baby is kicking and he thinks it's a boy because it's strong. Just a bit weird. Obviously, the first part of this series basically ends with the birth of Edward, finally a son, and the death of Jane Seymour. So, I mean, Henry VIII is completely crushed. As I said, there's another storyline in these episodes, and it's the Pilgrimage of Grace, and where Jane Seymour also plays a role. I mean, it's, you know, a very small role, but probably historically accurate, and a very nice portrayal of Jane Seymour in that. So we have the scene where, you know, the peasants are not happy. They want, you know, Henry VIII basically to go back to Catholicism. They don't like what is happening with the dissolution of monasteries. And they also have something very strong against Cromwell. They really see him as this Protestant kind of counselor poisoning the ears of their majesty. And what's very interesting is that we have scenes as well where obviously Henry VIII is going to try to show mercy.
Contrary to God's commandments, then rebellion. Rising like madmen against your prince, leaving lands untilled and corn unsown is not the behavior of the proper commonwealth you claim to be.
Your Majesty, I feel compelled to...
Hush. You're before the King's Majesty.
You make false claims about our intentions towards the church. We have done nothing but what the clergy in York and Canterbury agreed was in accordance with God's holy word. God's holy word, gentlemen. So how can the simple people say the contrary? What presumption and madness is it of them to claim knowledge of God's law when they are ignorant and less knowledgeable and should rather know their duty? You have seen before in Lincolnshire and elsewhere how temperate and forgiving is our inclination. The rebellion is against God's will. I declare my intentions through the pity and compassion of our princely heart to pardon all of you who have transgressed, on condition that you now lay down your arms. His Grace, the Duke of Suffolk, will come north again to Yorkshire to moderate with you and make peace, and see you disbanded. Good day, gentlemen.
And we have like apparently a very merciful king.
You listen to your people and to your heart.
Jane, I told you once before, don't meddle in my affairs. Do you remember what happened to the late Queen?
Yes.
I love you more than her. More even than Catherine. Don't spoil it.
That's a very cringy scene. Jane Seymour is trying to advocate for King Henry to listen to his people. She's more of a Catholic, right? She doesn't really believe in everything he's doing. And this reference to, do you remember what happened to the late Queen? Like, do you remember what an awful husband I am? Thank you. Is he basically threatening his new wife in bed? I mean, pew! Very cringy scene. The rebellion is not going down well, and obviously there's going to be like executions of the people who took arms against Henry VIII. And here it really shows what type of, you know, king he was. In the first part of season 3, the first 5 episodes, this is really the timeline. This is really the 2 storylines that are fascinating. We obviously end, as I said, with Jane Seymour's death and the baby boy. I will end this History Police video with my favorite scene, probably of the show. The 2 sisters discussing, is it more important to be a boy or a girl? And you'll see what Elizabeth said.
He's a sweet prince.
Yes, he is.
And he's our brother.
The king has waited a long time for a son.
But he still loves us.
A boy is more important, Elizabeth.
I don't think so.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time for another video on my YouTube channel. I'm so grateful that you're here. Bye!